Hello students, welcome back. Today we shall read a poem, Mending by Robert Frost. Robert Frost is a famous American poet. No, I'm not going to give you the detailed biography of the poet. Let us talk about poems instead. A poem is written by a poet when he is emotionally or intellectually inspired. But why do we read a poem? As students, you may read a poem to get good grades for your examination. So, while you read a poem in your textbook, you may approach it with the mindset of a person trying to crack a puzzle or solve a problem. But unfortunately, it is not the right approach. A poem is meant to please you, to give you pleasure. So, when you start reading a poem, you should be open. You should have an open mind. You should use all your senses. You should create word pictures in your mind. Come on children, let us read the poem Mending
Mending Wall by Robert Frost is set in a place called New Hampshire, an area which is a part of New England. And New England is nowhere near England. It is a northeastern part of United States with a very beautiful landscape. The climate of New England, unlike our countries, has 4 seasons: summer, fall, winter, and spring. This poem is set in New Hampshire in one of the spring seasons, when people, after days of inactivity, are free to go outside and do some outdoor activities. The poet Robert Frost had a neighbor named Napoleon Way at New Hampshire. Both of them often walked along their property lines and repaired the walls that separated them. Quite likely, this was the inspiring moment that made the poet write the beautiful poem. Mending Wall. Mending means repairing. So the title means repairing wall. Something there is that doesn't love a wall, that sends the frozen ground swell under it and spills the upper boulders in the sun and makes gaps even two can pass abreast. The poem begins with an opening statement. There is something that doesn't love wall. The speaker has his own reasons to believe so. Let us read the following lines. That sends the frozen ground swell under it and spills the upper boulders in the sun and make gaps even two can pass abreast. During winter, the ground under the wall gets frozen and it swells up. During spring, the snow thaws or melts. As a result, it disturbs the weakly constructed wall. Remember, the wall we are talking about is not made of brick and concrete. It is made of some boulders kept together loosely without any kind of cementing. By springtime, when the sun reappears, the wall would collapse, spilling the boulders everywhere. The gaps made are so big that 2 people can walk across it side by side. Let us read the lines once again. Something there is that doesn't love a wall, that sends the frozen ground swell under it and spills the upper boulders in the sun and makes gaps even two can pass abreast. So, the speaker suspects that there is something that doesn't love walls. According to him, it can be the forces of nature that destroy the wall with changing seasons. But he is not sure. In New England, hunting was a favorite pastime. Men roamed about in the woods with the hunting dogs to catch a wild rabbit or a bird. The narrator suspects the hunters. They must have played a role in the destruction of the wall. Let us read the lines. The work of hunters is another thing. I have come after them and made repair, where they have left not one stone on a stone, but they would have the rabbit out of hiding to please the yelping dogs. Yes, this may be the work of hunters because the narrator has followed the hunters and made repairs before. The dogs would smell wild rabbits hiding inside the wall and start yelping. The hunters will remove the boulders from the wall to catch rabbits and the dogs would calm down. Big gaps on the wall will be the result. So, the narrator has every reason to suspect the hunters, but still he is not sure. The gaps, no one has seen them made or heard them made, but at spring mending time we find them there. There is something mysterious about the gaps in the wall, because though the narrator has a lot of suspicions, nobody has actually seen the wall getting damaged or heard the sounds. But every year during the spring, like a natural phenomenon, they find the gaps in the wall readily waiting to get repaired. The suspicion, of course, is directed once again towards the forces of nature. Every year, without fail, the gaps are created on the walls. So, mending wall has become an yearly exercise. Now, the wall needs repair badly. But you cannot repair a boundary wall on your own. It may lead to disputes. So, the narrator informs his neighbor. I let my neighbor know beyond the hill, and on a day we meet to walk the line and set the wall between us once again. We keep the wall between us as we go. His neighbor happens to live beyond a hill. They fix a day and time to walk along the boundary line that separates their property and rebuild the wall between them once again. Dear students, please read the last two lines once again. And set the wall between us once again. We keep the wall between us as we go. Look at the use of the word us. The narrator and neighbor is building a wall to separate their properties, but the word us also suggests that they are creating a wall between them. They are separating themselves from each other, creating an individuality of their own. Literally, they build the wall as they move forward along the boundary line. But figuratively, we can see that while they move forward in their lives, they would like to keep a barrier or a border between them, separating their personalities. Now the speaker and the neighbor starts mending wall. To each the boulders that have fallen to each, and some are loaves and some so nearly balls. We have to use a spell to make them balance. Stay where you are until our backs are turned. The boulders have fallen one over another on each side of the boundary line. They have irregular shapes. Some look like loaves of bread, others have rounded shapes like a ball. It will be very difficult to put them together to rebuild the wall. The narrator playfully comments, perhaps they have to use a magical spell to make the stones balance. That is, boulders, stay where you are until our backs are turned. The last two lines suggest that they are building the wall as an act of habit or tradition that they have to repeat every year at the same time. The wall is very weak. It may get disrupted very easily, but they simply keep on rebuilding it as if out of habit and not out of necessity. We wear our fingers rough with handling them. Oh, just another kind of outdoor game. One on a side. It comes to little more. Rebuilding the wall happens to be a tough physical exercise. Their fingers are becoming rough and damaged by handling the stones. The narrator tries to view the activity on a lighter shade. He calls it an outdoor game played by persons standing on opposite sides. Nothing more. The poet Robert Frost was fond of tennis. Maybe he is comparing tennis with mending wall. Figuratively, we can regard the whole activity as a civic game, something that is played to strengthen the bond between people living in the same society. Now, let us sum up. According to the narrator, there is something that doesn't love a wall. He suspects that the natural forces like snow and sun, along with changing seasons, are responsible for creating gaps in the wall. The hunters trying to catch rabbits hidden in between the boulders are the other suspects. Anyway, the narrator is not sure. He invites his neighbor living beyond the hill. They fix a time to rebuild the wall between their properties. As they make progress in building the wall, they realize that it is a difficult job. The boulders are scattered everywhere. They have irregular shapes. It is very difficult to put them together. He even playfully considers using a magical spell to make the wall stay. Their fingers are becoming damaged by handling the rough stones. This exercise of building a wall is more like an outdoor game played by two people standing on opposite sides.
So dear students, it is said that Robert Frost's poems begin in delight. I hope you all had a delightful experience. See you later in yet another video. Thank you.